Don't forget, the next video after this part has already been made and is live now on my Patreon for you to see straight after you've watched this. Fully voice acted, soundtracked, and with my signature editing up for early access to the incredible 4,200 plus patrons who support my work from just $3 with more and more access at higher tiers. This has long been requested to have the full next video early available to you guys who just can't wait for what happens next on Ultra Vegito. And now it's finally here. Links are in the pinned comment and description. Head there after the video. So our story continues with a view of Vegito in his true demon form, but with a far more forlorn look than usual, having not only just lost his time rings, but also suddenly defeated by the god of Zeno, and in the same vein, then mysteriously left alive. And as we zoom in on his palpably confused and lost presence, he would begin muttering out, "It happened again. I was defeated easily. And now, even my trump card, my one way to maybe have beaten Zeno, the time rings are all gone. I will never be able to bring them back." As behind the saddened godkiller, visions of his deceased and erased family would appear to haunt him. But suddenly, like a ticking time bomb, Vegito would then explode rapidly in rage, turning his negative emotion into power as he lets everything out. And as we look as viewers from a distance, the end result is a humongous explosion of power, creating a sphere of red energy with black lightning tumbling all over. While meanwhile in the distance, feeling and seeing the sudden planet-shaking quake and charge of insane energy, the three forgotten deities left behind by Z would all stand in panic, stepping back in fear, with Mule whispering, "Wait a second! Z! I don't sense him anymore! Is he coming back? At the very least, his energy barrier's still here to protect us, right?" But Vegito, once his unleashing of rage is complete, even from that distance, would hear their whimpers and reply, "If you fools really think that little glass house you're in is going to protect you, then you have another thing coming. I'm mad right now, and I could use something to take it all out on. Who's first? Any takers?" No! And in response to this sudden threat, the three gods would once more cower in fear and terror, knowing they are only inches away from death if Vegito's threat was true. But at least Z's energy was still holding strong. But with a pessimistic view, Mule, despite this, would worry, "That damn god! I don't know what he's up to, but that freak over there tried breaking this already. If it's still up, then it means Z will be back. Maybe this is just part of his plan. Maybe this is..." But suddenly, as Mule would begin making up various theories and explanations to where the royal guard was, unexpectedly, the energy barrier would then begin dissipating right before his eyes. What? Huh? No! How? Leaving all three to now be left panic-stricken and more vulnerable than ever, with the godkiller just looking back, noticing and saying, "Well, looks like now I don't even need to worry about that silly dome after all. Guess you three don't exactly have God's favor." But with no options left and nowhere to run, the brave angels and born defenders of the destroyers, Campari and Owamo, would quickly get into fighting stance, sweat dripping from their brow as Campari would say, "No, I refuse to believe Lord Z would abandon us without good reason. Father would not allow this. Think about it, Owamo. The God Killer was on the verge of losing. His power must have deteriorated now to the level that we can defeat him. That must be the reason." To which Owamo would agree, Yes, brother, that has to be it." While the concerningly unconvinced mule just remains silent in the background. And with their conviction set in their faith in Z, the two naive angels would rush in at the God Killer, staffs in hand, and perhaps straight to their untimely deaths. But as they approach, the once moody Vegito would then crack a smirk as he would let out, "After all that just happened to me, I didn't know how long it would take me to regain my resolve. But gods like you just remind me how pointless your existences truly are." And instantly, with extreme speed that leaves even the angels looking back in confusion, Vegito would suddenly move forward and appear straight behind the two perplexed children of Dawn. Before turning around with his signature chuckle and saying, "You two have more than outstayed your welcome. Good night, my sweet angel." And with that ominous line said, only a nanosecond later, both angels would experience a hard and sharp knock to the back of each's neck, almost at exactly the same time. And instantly, like putting down two tired children, both Campari and Owamo are instantly knocked out unconscious, slamming down onto their faces, their eyes already closed and lifeless, as Vegito just stands behind, almost as if he had not moved an inch, his arms and hands just simply raised. "And now, your energy is mine!" As quickly, for the first time in a long time, Vegito would unleash his cell tail, given to him by Jiren, with a splash of green goo, instantly stabbing it into the silent body of Owamo first. "Huh? What is that?" Shocking the last remaining destroyer, as his final defenders now begin to get slaughtered before his eyes with complete ease. Vegito, slyly looking down at his meal, would begin to reply though, "Watch closely, and you'll know exactly what this is." And moments later, the horrific sight of the once plump Owamo turning into a pile of creased skin flaps would then be seen. And next, Campari would then be injected too, and he too within seconds would be completely robbed of his energy and life force also. And with the two angels now added to the God Killer's kill list, Vegito would snap back his cell tail, looking hardly impressed, as he then looks to Mule finally and says, "Well, that was underwhelming as usual. Is there even any real point in harvesting your energy now, Mule? How about you save us all some time and off yourself for my amusement?" No! And with ultimate fear and vulnerability in his heart, with a blue hue over his face, the final destroyer would just scream out before Get away from me! In a final-ditch effort, the short god, who is more used to being in machines than on foot, would attempt to run away, hoping Vegito would have mercy on him. Looking back, Mule, in a panicked state, is barely able to see anything, as sweat drips into his eyes, but he would think, I have to survive! I can't die like this! This can't be happening! Zeno! Grand Priest! Please help me! But as Vegito stares back coldly, the mention of those two only serves to anger him, as he mutters back, Zeno! Just what game are you playing with me? But Mule, not looking where he is going, would eventually then bump his head onto a hard, unmoving surface. Damn it! Falling back swiftly onto his backside. Before, with a groan, looking down, he would say, I need to keep going! And he would slowly then raise his head to see what he had even collided with. What? And standing there like a cinder block, it is revealed to be Vegito himself. Ready for his final kill of the day, with his arms folded, he would simply let out, And where do you think you're going, Destroyer? I may have let that cowardly god escape, but you'd be a fool to think I'd allow you to do the same. Now hurry up and become one with me. No! One with you? Please, spare me! Leading to the now on the verge of tears god to plead for his life pathetically, looking up at the mortal he once disregarded. But Vegito would only find amusement from the Destroyer's begging, changing his mood from his earlier embarrassment at the hands of Z before he would humor Mule. Spare you, Mule? Tell me, exactly why would I do that to the final god of destruction on my list after coming this far? Why you? Do you think my rage has subsided by now? Because I can assure you, it's only just begun! Wait! Well, first of all, what if I told you I'm not even the last remaining destroyer? And in his last moments, Mule would reveal something strange. Immediately stopping Vegito from moving any further, as he, in a dubious tone, would inquire, Another destroyer? Stop with the lies! What on earth are you talking about? What on earth? How ironic. As Mule, now smiling awkwardly, realizing his apparent chance to bargain, would then respond, There is indeed a final destroyer out there, and I will bet my life on it. There is one you have missed out on. I assumed you knew this, but if you did not, I can help you. I can bring you to him. And all you need to do is... But before any more of a word can be said, in brutal fashion, like kicking a football in rage, Vegito would slam his foot straight into the face of the child-sized god. So hard, and with such a lack of remorse, the entire face of Mule would concave inwards, breaking the very bones of his skull as blood is forced to squirt out. Sending the near-dead body of Mule shooting into the sky at speeds he's never even experienced before. His eyes closed and teeth all busted up as he soars with blood shooting out, only finally muttering, You damn demon! as from the ground, the God Killer would just lift his palm out to the now small dot in the sky that is Mule before... Final destroyer or not, these will be your final moments! Hakai! Before screaming out the words of the final finisher move of Vegito the God Killer. Instantly erasing the screaming mule to absolute nothingness. But with so much force, the once whole planet they were on, when seen from space, would then suddenly have a third of its surface erased along with the god too. And in the aftermath, Vegito would just then remain, standing at the edge of the planet's amputated surface in silence, looking over to the endless expanse of space. Eventually, then looking to the sky, still partially affected by the events of his battle with Z, and would think, Everything seems to be never-ending. Zeno won't even allow my death. And at the same time, now there's another destroyer? Who? Where? I guess there's only one way for me to find out. Immediately then following this up by summoning his angel staff, the one given to him by Whis, before pulling it close to his face and in classic style yelling, Staff! Take me to this so-called final god of destruction! And just like that, seemingly confirming the existence of one more destroyer. After all, Vegito would then shoot off in a beam of light to his next destination. Meanwhile though, the scene would not stay with Vegito, and soon we would be greeted with Jiren's calm face, his eyes still closed and in total silence. And as we zoom out, he would continue to be surrounded in energy as he continues to meditate despite the figure who had just arrived on the scene. And of course, watching on from the distance with his arms folded would be Makoto, smirking at Jiren's audacity as he would comment, what an interesting fellow. Standing before him is his death sentence, and he still dares carry on without as much as giving me a gaze. He's either extremely overconfident or extremely stupid. But suddenly, looking from a distance, the aura around Jiren would then instantly disappear before... Out of nowhere, Jiren would burst open his eyes finally, now awake as he looks stoically and lets out, So, just as Son Goku had said, a member of the 5 strongest has finally come for me. And for what? Because I killed Belmod, I presume? To which Makoto, smiling back, would just reply, Ha! So you do know why I'm here. Most of my victims often feign innocence. It's good to see you have accepted your fate, young pride trooper. Jiren, now getting up with his eyes closed once more and relaxed, would sigh and say back, I know not the fate you have in mind for me, but yes, I have accepted the fate that I know. Though, tell me before we begin, you referred to me as the second God Killer. Should you not be chasing after the first God Killer before me? I can't help but think he would have a far longer list of cardinal sins than I. And almost pleased to say his next line, with a smirk, Makoto would then reveal, That would be correct. No doubt the famed Vegito of Universe 7 has laid waste to far more gods and angels than you ever did. And in truth, I would far rather be assigned to eliminate him than you. But unfortunately, it seems our friend is already dead. Instantly making the former destroyer lose his cool, as his face goes into shock and he whispers, "Son Goku is dead? No!" And giggling as if familiar with the relationship between Jiren and Vegito, Makoto would then go on to explain with a smile, "Yes, Jiren, you are the only god killer left now. Not too long ago, for reasons that even I have no clue about, Lord Zeno decided to send down one of his royal guards to finish Vegito off. True overkill in my opinion, but that is the reason I could not do the job. Safe to say, there would only be one survivor in that battle. The power of those guards is something I know all too well." And slowly, as Jiren would hear this, almost instinctively, without control over himself, his body would begin tensing as a flush of emotion comes over him. And with rubble rising as his body becomes covered in black lightning, he would then grumble, "Son Goku, you fool! I told you to get out while you could!" But almost on the instant that this change begins to happen, Makoto would quickly grab onto the handle of his sword, as if on an instinct of his own. And once revealed to be completely in sword stance, ready to unsheathe, the fourth of the five strongest would let out, "I'm going to assume this rise in energy is your way of starting our battle, young one. But if you think a samurai waits for his opponent to reach his full strength, then you are sadly mistaken. Let's just hope you finish your transformation fast enough to keep up with my katana. I will not wait around." And ominously, as we zoom in on one side of the fourth's face, he would ask finally, "Ready, God Killer?" To which Jiren would only mutter, "Son Goku." And immediately with intense speed and perfect technique, Makoto would launch out and swipe his katana at full speed directly towards Jiren, who would still remain at a distance. But even so, just the swipe itself would create a scythe-like expanse of white energy that would shoot off with unspeakable speed straight towards the God Killer, cutting through anything in its way. And as it would approach, Jiren would remain still and not saying a word. Like a statue, the energy slice would reach closer and closer, reaching his actual face for the kill until... instantly, the energy blade would make direct contact with Jiren's skull. And surprisingly, the former Pride Trooper himself would make absolutely no attempt to vanish or dodge in any way. Luckily though, as the smoke from the blast begins to bellow to his right side, at the very least, nearly no damage has been caused, as Jiren's emotionless face just continues to stare forward until... looks like I was fast enough after all. As shockingly, Jiren would then reveal himself to have finally activated his demonic powers, with a horn having already shot forth and now under his control finally, as with his now Ultra Instinct-esque eyes targeted on Makoto, he would say, "Once I'm done defeating you, you will bring me to Son Goku's killing." Huh? But this horn and lack of damage caused by the fourth's blade would only serve to surprise Makoto, as with a stunned look as he stares at the sudden black demonic protrusion out of Jiren's skull, he would comment, horn. A demon's horn. I heard the God Killer from Universe 7 had two, but now you have one as well. Unbelievable. But now with a more serious face, as if understanding only now the force he is dealing with, Makoto would place his sword on his shoulder and think internally, so, it is as Yamoshi told me. These horns are the first signs of a mortal's change to a demon. A confirmation of the cardinal sin you have committed. Before an interesting move, Makoto would then sheath back his sword, saying, though, a demon such as yourself is hardly worthy of dulling my blade. With a stern look then adding, it has been a while since I had faced a demon. I suppose you won't be quite on the level of the emperors I have faced, but I hope you shall suffice for a warm-up. While an unbothered Jiren would reply, just be sure you know where to find those that defeated Son Goku. And instantly, with this said, Makoto would then rush straight forward towards Jiren, while yet again, just like against the katana, he would remain ominously still. And as Makoto would throw both of his fists at the same time in an unorthodox move, Jiren would completely catch both and not move an inch backwards. Leaving the fourth slightly bewildered at why the warrior would hold on so tightly still, as he would say, fast reactions. But what do you intend to do if your arms are restrained too like this? This! As suddenly in a familiar move to what Jiren did to Hit back in the Tournament of Power, the God Killer would begin spinning around both of Makoto's arms at once. What are you? Confusing the fourth to no end with the unique maneuver as he tries his best to fight back against the overpowering strength of the muscle-clad Jiren. Struggling and struggling as Jiren's face remains completely cool, only saying, if this is the power of the five strongest, then perhaps I truly will be able to bring the gods in line through my own methods. What? Eventually then instantly launching the fourth into a full-on speedy spin, with just his technique and strength alone, as the fourth just stares back in complete disbelief at how easily he has been manhandled. But while still in the air and looking like a mini tornado, Jiren would cock back his oversized arm and fist to land a devastating blow. But unfortunately, just as he extends the punch out fully, Makoto would vanish at the very last second, being nowhere to be seen. Instantly now reappearing behind Jiren, whispering, nice move, but you cannot harm what you are too slow to hit. Cocking back his own fist before Jiren this time, with his Ultra Instinct inbuilt, would dodge himself. Before utterly shattering the words of the fourth that he had just said, slamming a fist directly into the legendary god's face. But as the wounded both physically and in ego fourth would look back angrily, he would grumble, lucky shot, demon! Though undeterred, Jiren himself would lock and load both of his arms back, ready to unleash a barrage of fists. And instantly, Makoto would then find himself forced to bring back both of his arms to defend himself as Jiren's fists rain down non-stop and with increasing strength and speed. All the while, Makoto would think, "This Jiren, he fights well. Far better than I had expected." Immediately then vanishing once more to get out of harm's way. Returning once more from behind with his arm ready to chop through Jiren like he tried with his own katana. But the second God Killer would already be all too aware, looking out the side of his eye. What? Again? But Jiren this time would vanish, just as the fourth had done before. But unlike Makoto, when he reappears, his attack from behind would land instantly, and for devastating impact, as Jiren's hardened elbow would smack onto the soft back of the fourth skull. And as Makoto would begin stumbling forward in pain, Jiren would raise his arms again, ready to deal another blow. But it would seem the fourth would not be as damaged as he let on, as quickly his body would become an after-image. What? Shockingly then reappearing to make contact, but in a very different way to what was attempted earlier, as Makoto would appear wrapped around the back of Jiren, with his arms firmly planted around the neck of the God Killer, ready to choke him out. And the legendary god, looking down, pleased at himself, would then say, "You may be big and strong, demon, but you're far too stiff. Can you even reach behind to touch me with all those muscles in the way? Enjoy the view, as these will be your last moments breathing." But as Makoto grips for his life, Jiren would answer his chokehold by simply powering up in rage, red fiery aura shooting out, burning all in its path. Which eventually would send Makoto flying off into the distance from the sheer blowback of just Jiren's power, while Jiren himself would instantly then turn around and begin rushing straight forward for the fourth head-on. Switching quickly from a run to now flying ahead as if about to penetrate the fourth with his singular horn. But in reality, as Jiren reaches Makoto in the blink of an eye, he would then win the fourth with his shoulder alone, barging into him at full speed. As the completely taken by surprise Makoto, wide-eyed, would let out, "This strength, how could this even exist down here?" And with the attack finished, Jiren would land gracefully in the distance, as Makoto's damaged body would land behind. And as we look on at his motionless body on the ground, not a word would be said, as if Jiren had actually finally incapacitated the fourth. But an unimpressed Jiren, looking back, would then let out, "Stand down, warrior. This battle is over. I will spare your life if you can tell me where Son Goku's killers are. I will go there myself." But suddenly, as Jiren would make this request, Makoto, as if coming back from the dead, begins raising his body slowly. Before soon enough, he would be up and with a cunning grin on his face, complete with a line of blood running down from his lip, as he would reply, "Impressive. Impressive indeed. I truly did not expect the killer of a lowly destroyer like Belmod to have anything close to the strength you possess. In my eyes, you're even stronger than what I anticipated for Vegito. What a fun turn of events. As Makoto, mid-sentence, would slowly then grab onto the handle of his sword once again, as he would look on at Jiren, now a sense of confidence and security, and continue, "Well, I did say earlier a demon of your level was not even worth dulling my blade. But for that, I must apologize, as it seems you will be worth far more, Jiren the Grey." As Makoto would then unsheath his katana, but interestingly, would begin pointing it towards himself, rather than outwards, as he would laugh. I truly hope you had not convinced yourself that this is the limit of what the legendary fourth could do. For your sake at least. But Jiren, looking on, would sport a confused face, only wondering as to why the fourth would hold the blade in such a strange fashion until... As suddenly, without a lick of hesitation, the fourth of the five strongest would suddenly stab his blade straight through his own body, all the way through, right up until the handle. In obvious pain, as blood begins to seep and his body trembles, but with a crazed smile, the fourth would mutter, "Consider this an honor, for this is an ultimate power no demon before has ever seen. The ultimate power of an angel. The power of an angel that turns his back on God." As not done with the gruesome scene, Makoto would then suddenly slash out his blade from his open wound, causing a waterfall of crimson red blood to burst out. All the while, his huge grin would remain tight on his face, laughing maniacally. "Welcome to the end of your life!" But just the sight itself of his foe seemingly slaughtering his own self would be enough to send Jiren to a frenzy of confusion, as he would question, What are you doing?" To which Makoto, seemingly more damaged than ever, with his blood loss causing him to just reply weakly, "I'm honoring you, Jiren, former god of destruction of Universe 11, former mortal. What I'm showing you is a forbidden power that lost me my seat at the side of Zeno, a power I adapted from the teachings of the Grand Priest, and a power one day I will use to finally beat those damn gods myself. So, I'm sorry, you will not be the one to avenge Vegito, as I have a score to settle with his killers first." And immediately, on the finishing of that last weakened word, Makoto would begin roaring to the heavens, his screaming becoming darker in nature as red lightning begins to shoot forth from all directions of his body until... In a shocking sight, one wing would burst forth from the right side of Makoto, just as it did with Z. White in color again, but this time completely stained and dripping in blood, as the white features will slowly but surely darken in color over time. And even with the wing launched out, Makoto's power would not cease to flux out, creating a wind so great, even Jiren, who would not flinch for a literal katana blade to the face, would begin covering himself. It feels so good to be back in this form. My own version of a seraphim! As Makoto would then stand up finally, with his sword finally now faced away from himself, and though still leaking with blood, he would appear more energized than ever, before yelling out with a scream, "Now, Jiren the God Killer, live up to your name and show me why you are worthy of dying to the first and only Blood Angel!" With his sword now in tow for the first time, Makoto in his seraphim form, complete with a glowing red eye, would launch himself with instantaneous speed to Jiren. What? But it would seem not by choice, but rather his own body and mind just were not able to react in time. As Makoto would land on the other side of the God Killer, his sword extended as if he had just moved through Jiren like a ghost. And soon, the after effects of the fourth movement are seen, as in a delayed response to his speed, Jiren's right arm would explode in blood, as a sudden slice would appear, completely unexpected and undetected by the former Pride Trooper. All the while, Makoto would look back giggling, looking out of his red seraphim eye, and commenting, "Jiren the Grey, huh? What a boring color. Let me help you and add some flair." And just like that, once more the fourth would immediately move past and through Jiren once again, sword in hand, at this moment almost appearing more like instant transmission than just speed, as Makoto would ominously finally say, "I say, it's time to kick this up a notch." As suddenly, from out of nowhere, not just one more, but multiple slices and cuts would appear all over Jiren's body. Each one sadistically done to maim the God Killer rather than actually kill him. Every cut done so fast and so consecutively, Jiren would have barely any time to even react in pain. That is until moments later, when the true level of just how many slices Jiren had undergone finally hits him, as blood begins to burst out of every slice like mini volcanoes, as Makoto, with his back turned, would just smirk and let out, "Sorry, warrior, but nobody who feels the blade of the Blood Angel ever lives to tell the tale. Bloody Slash's technique times 1,000. And as Jiren is left alone in the distance, just succumbing slowly to his wounds, his body would begin to tumble and lose balance, blood falling and creating puddles on the floor. He struggles to even talk before Son Goku. In his final words, he would call out to his once friend, his eyes now clearly lifeless. As then, he would finally then fall to his death, unable to take any more of the complete rush of pain and agony dished out by Makoto, now flat on his face as an ungodly amount of blood begins to seep out from all of his open wounds. And with the battle over, Makoto would then just sheath back his sword, his eyes closed as he offers a final word of respect, noting, "It is done. You fought well, however, and I shall remember your name for the rest of my days. I leave your body now for the Grand Priest to do as he wishes, but I hope one day we can meet again in the Demon Realm." before opening his eyes and saying a final goodbye, Jiren. And then flying off into the sky with his lone wing in tow, as Jiren would remain deceased on the ground below. But as time passes and we see Jiren's body unmoving on the battlefield from a distance, as we zoom closer in, something unusual begins to happen. His hand remaining cold like stone until black lightning from nowhere begins to cover the great hero of Universe 11 once more. It seems the battle between the fourth of the five strongest and the second God Killer has only just begun. But that was it for today's video, guys, and if you made it this far, leave me a hashtag revive in the comments down below and let me know if you really think Jiren will come back and who you think the final God of Destruction will be. Or you can just find out what happens right now on my Patreon, where you can see the full next video, fully voice acted, soundtracked, and edited for you to enjoy with over 4,200 plus other fans, as well as getting access to 250 plus other fan mangas too. It's the deal of the century.